This podcast will contain opinions, some of which you will like, some of which you won't. So suck it up.
Hello, I thought we'd try this out. This is a podcast talking not necessarily about previews, more about reviews.
Another one?
Now, the definitions here are media. So that can be anything from recorded media such as film, television, internet, streaming, music, live music, anything I think that is ultimately dependent on media transmission. And also, hopefully, there'll be some things that you'll like. Anyway, let's get started.
You need this in your life.
Widow's Bay.
Created by Katie Dippold and directed by Hiro Murai, who you may remember is responsible for shows such as Atlanta. And that sense of crossing genres and tones is apparent here. I won't ever give you spoilers. I won't tell you anything much about it other than it's set in a fictional island town off the coast of New England. And desperate to save the town's failing economy, the local mayor, Tom, launches an aggressive PR push to turn the island into a modern tourist hotspot. The show started out as a Parks and Recreation style sitcom, but during development it then turned into really a straightforward horror story with funny moments. And I think that's what's been so brilliant about this. Each of the 10 episodes of this series, which was released on the 17th of June and has already scored a renewal for Season 2 sometime in the next couple of years. Each of the 10 episodes have been exemplary in terms of managing horror, comedy, narrative structure and storytelling. It's probably the scariest thing on TV at the moment, and it's helped by an amazing cast. Stephen Root, who many of you know through various different films and television such as Oh Brother Where Art Thou, Barry, Kate O'Flynn, who's a graduate of the Mike Leigh School of Acting, the brilliant Matthew Rhys. All three of them are just fantastic in this. In fact, Matthew Rhys is remarkable. Never have I seen an actor transmit fear and anxiety in quite this precise way. Brilliant, and definitely worth your time.
Tiptoe.
Tiptoe is a 5-part suburban thriller which was debuted on Channel 4 on the 31st of May in 2026. And it quickly became the network's highest performing 9pm drama launch since early 2025. This is a psychological thriller, stroke, comedy drama, stroke, polemic really in many ways. The series has sparked a massive national conversation in its examination of how social media echo chambers and anti-LGBTQ+ rhetoric and online conspiracy theories can radicalise ordinary people. I found it shocking, I found it moving, it's incredibly tense, it's really funny in places, and I think it's probably show writer Russell T Davies at his absolute best. In fact, it really did act as a nice counter to what had happened with Doctor Who, which I felt that Russell T Davies was losing his touch a bit, really. Here, he's back to his absolute best. In fact, one might even say this is his most personal and perhaps most excoriating piece of work. There is a case for Russell T Davies to be the British contemporary Armistead Maupin when he talks about gay culture in the Manchester quarters in Canal Street. And he's helped along brilliantly by Alan Cummings and David Morrissey, both of whom give career best performances. Again, no spoilers. This is really heady stuff. If you haven't seen it already, I can't recommend it highly enough. I think it's among Russell T Davies' absolute best.
Star City.
Star City is Apple TV's follow-up, really, I guess, a spin-off of their very successful show For All Mankind, created by Matt Warper, Ben Nadivi and Ronald D. Moore. This is an 8-episode paranoid thriller which was premiered on Apple on the 29th of May. And in this instance it shifts the focus of the global space race, detailed in For All Mankind, from the perspective of the Soviet Union, pulling back the Iron Curtain to explore the hidden costs, the espionage and dangers faced by Soviet cosmonauts, engineers and intelligence officers. I think what is interesting is that For All Mankind, in terms of script quality and intensity, has really dropped away in the last couple of series since they become kind of bogged down on Mars. If I was going to be unkind, I'd say it almost feels like For All Mankind's been written by ChatGPT. It's been incredibly bland. But Star City restores that sense of nostalgia about danger and about the perils of space travel that For All Mankind did so brilliantly in the first, I think, 3 seasons. It tells the story of this alternative timeline from the Russian perspective, a much more distant, invisible one that counters the official line we saw in the last show. Standout turns include Rhys Ifans and Anna Maxwell Martin, Ruby Ashbourne Circus, Alice Engelhart, and the earlier versions of established For All Mankind characters, Sergei, played by Joseph Davis, and the future head of security, Irina, played by Agnes O'Casey. And I don't think it's an accident that Irina, who has reappeared in For All Mankind and has really showed where For All Mankind has gone off the boil. She's by far the most interesting character in that show. But Star City is an object lesson in how totalitarian societies treat the people trapped within them and the heroes they choose to elevate and then destroy.
If you absolutely have nothing better to do.
Must be something to puncture my thickening shield of numbness.
The Punisher, One Last Kill.
A 45-minute Marvel Television special presentation that premiered on Disney Plus in May 2026. It features John Berthnell as a fictitious assassin, Frank Castle, his family murdered by mafia dark forces as he comes to terms with their death and also embarks on a voyage of retribution and redemption. The show really focuses on Castle's psychological collapse after completing his initial revenge mission in the previous couple of series for Netflix. And supposedly this one-off story bridges between the recent Daredevil Born Again series and his upcoming appearance in Spider-Man Brand New Day, which comes out in July of this year. It looks good, it's well acted, it's well put together. It's difficult to say there's anything wrong with it. I think if you really like The Punisher, you'll love this. I love Berthnell in the role. I have to say, part of me found it so grim that it became laughable in places. And it's kind of really a little bit one note, as indeed The Punisher is. There is not a lot to the character. And this really does show, for me anyway. By the end of it, I just wanted to cheer up a bit.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
But there's some great action. Berthnell is incredibly tortured throughout, and you kind of get the impression that they're setting up nicely for a rebirth in the Spider-Man movie Brand New Day.
Media Mulch.
Really, these are about media events. I like the idea of media events. I used to run years ago when I was a teacher a level 4 first year module called Contemporary Media Events. Things which have permeated culture at quite a profound level. So I've always been interested in that, and I thought I'd highlight some of the most impactful of the last month or so.
The Resurrection of Rush.
The rock prog band Rush have officially reunited and are currently on the road for their massive 50-something tour. Co-founders of the band, Geddy Lee on bass and vocals, and guitar player Alex Lightson, launched this highly anticipated comeback on the 7th of June of this year, 2026, at the Kia Forum in Los Angeles, marking the band's first live outing since 2015. The tour celebrates over 50 years of Rush's music, while deeply honouring their late drummer and lyricist Neil Peart, who passed away in 2020. Now, Peart is regarded by many as probably one of the best drummers that ever lived, and was deemed as irreplaceable. So the duo is joined by German drum virtuoso Annika Nilles to take over behind the kit, alongside touring keyboardist Lauren Gold. The trek spans 88 shows across 2 distinct legs, covering America, Europe, North America, and a lot of the major cities that they're in. And what's kind of been fascinating about it is that Rush initially were this kind of band that were hermetically sealed in the 70s and 80s. Very tightly grouped fan community, but now in recent years what's happened is that people have caught up with Rush and the story And it's also helped by the fact that Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson are really decent guys, and they're pleased and stroke relieved that they can go back on tour and still keep the level of musicianship up. What's been so wonderful for me is coming back to Rush after years not listening to them, but just watching Annika's run through of some of Neil Peart's incredible drum patterns, loops, solos and drum performances. You can feel the audience are kind of willing on every beat. It's an incredibly positive experience because the professor, Neil Peart, would undoubtedly approve of what's going on. It's kind of nice to see audiences just getting into the spirit of it and just celebrating the music and the band.
Doctor Who cancellation.
In the absence of information about the proposed Christmas special to be released in late December, there began a period of intense speculation. Russell T Davies, who was doing the rounds press-wise about Tiptoe for Channel 4, did seem oddly quiet and tight-lipped about the whole thing, especially when he'd earlier expressed enthusiasm and excitement, claiming that a script had been written which had resolved the regeneration into Billy Piper and had shocked and surprised BBC higher-ups. It turns out that the story is a lot more complicated, a lot muddier, although scripts are written. Russell T Davies claims there weren't scripts written, but this is all overshadowed by the collapse of the show with Disney Plus, who pulled out of their contract to distribute and stream the Doctor Who series in line with the BBC. So, the show still exists, and Russell T Davies says that there will be Doctor Who. He probably won't be part of it, although technically he can bid for it, should he wish to, and the concept has been offered out for tender. So whether it stays with another American streamer is up in the air. I mean, there were rumours that AMC were involved. Nothing more has come out about that. So the BBC has cancelled the annual Christmas special and paused internal production to open the show's future up to a competitive tender for future series. The BBC noted this move was not taken lightly, keeping the door open to find external partners to invest in the show's long-term future. So, no Russell T Davies. One insider basically said that you wouldn't probably expect much in the way of Doctor Who action till about 2028, probably 2029.
Maybe everything's gonna be okay.
The defenestration of Sir Keir Starmer.
Certainly, I think the 18th of June through to June the 22nd, which was a daily media onslaught on the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was very notable. It's resulted, though, of course, in Starmer's resignation on the 22nd. He is the 6th PM in 10 years.
Not another one?
Right. And I suppose really what the story talks about is misinformation culture, communication problems. And it is interesting to see the polarity where you see people online who really despise Keir Starmer. And a lot of people, a lot of Labour supporters who felt that he was perhaps a little bland, a little bit stuffy, kind of not effective, are actually keen just to see him stay in the job so he could complete what he set out to do when elected to Parliament a couple of years back. It says perhaps a lot about how the media circus now runs politics, and I think says a lot about the electorate's cruelty and distance and apathy and frustration, and a real shift towards personality over policy, hence why Andy Burnham has been brought in as the person to put the kibosh on reform. It's an interesting moment, not a positive one, but we'll see how that pans out.
It's not for you, Grandad.
Spider Noir.
You see, I should have liked Spider Noir. It's a live-action Marvel superhero series starring Nicolas Cage as Ben Reilly the Spider. It's released in May 2026, yep, this year, on Amazon Prime Video and MGM+. The 8-episode series is a stylised, hard-boiled detective mystery set in the Great Depression era of the 1930s in New York. So already this sounds great and sounds right up my street, but I don't get it. I just don't get it. I just can't land on it. Here he plays an older, down-on-his-luck private investigator who is an alternative version of Spider-Man, who gains his powers after encountering a mutant spider soldier during World War I. Grief-stricken by the loss of his wife, he's retired his web-slinging alias until a new case forces him back into action. Again, I'm not going to go too much into details, but it's a pretty impressive cast. Of the villains, it's Brendan Gleeson who dominates unsurprisingly as Silvermane, but you've got Jack Houston as Flint Marko the Sandman, you've got a femme fatale nightclub singer Cat Hardy's, and some of the other characters have kind of hint towards Tombstone and Electro. Originally it started out as an alternative Elseworld style series in the Marvel comic line Noir, first created in 2008, and Nicolas Cage voiced a popular animated version of the character in the 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse film, which was overseen by Lord and Miller, who oversee and produce this. For me, Cage is just too old, he's too weird, and he really stands out in an odd way, not in a good way. It's almost like he's been dropped into a different film. He kind of mumbles and stumbles his way, trying to invoke a kind of Humphrey Bogart style figure. And in truth, it's actually a fairly dull show. It's really kind of unengaging. Some of the action sequences are pretty impressive. I quite like some of the invocations of film noir, whether you watch it in black and white or colour, which you have the chance to do. I really do love the fact that the show exists and has been commissioned. It's really eccentric. But to me, it just simply doesn't engage. So that could be more me than the show. I may even come back to it and realise that I was wrong a few months later. That often happens. But from what I've seen so far, I'm about 6 episodes into 8, and it hasn't really taken off for me as yet. As I said, I think there are about a dozen actors that have played that better than Nicolas Cage.
Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more films and items of interest.
Drive the algorithm towards me. And I'll see you again for more The Old Manosphere. Have a good week. Hope you're well. See ya.
Listening to an old man trapped in a world he no longer understands.
You want to yourself.